What is going on, Cosmic Crew? Thanks for stopping by the channel. Today, we have a lot of news to go over. We have reports about the X-Men and which specific universe they are from / in Avengers Doomsday / the MCU. We have news about Kevin Feige's future in the MCU since Disney now has a CEO. They have named a new CEO, Bob Iger, stepping down, and Kathleen Kennedy is leaving Star Wars. A lot of people have been asking, well, what's going to happen with Kevin Feige? We have answers today, and also we have a new report about the beginning of Avengers Doomsday. A new insider has reconfirmed some leaks, but with a little bit of a twist, stating that some information out there is wrong. So, a lot to get into today. We'll first start it off with the X-Men, because I know for me personally, this is one of the things that I'm just ultimately super excited for. I really hope they get it right. If what we saw in that Avengers Doomsday X-Men teaser is any indication of what the whole movie will be like for the X-Men, I think we're in for just a phenomenal movie for the X-Men. But this is coming from Alex Perez at thecosmiccircus.com, and he explained this. In Avengers Doomsday, we see an alternate version of the X-Men universe. So an alternate version, not the exact same ones from the Fox X-Men universe that started with the first X-Men movie, not the same exact one. They state, Alex states, alternate version of the X-Men universe where events similar to those in the original trilogy and Days of Future Past have taken place. This makes it easier for the audience to understand, as they don't need to do much research beforehand, which I get how that does work for a lot of the broader audience, for people who perhaps saw the old X-Men movies a long time ago and don't want to rewatch, like the entire Infinity Saga and all of the X-Men movies, maybe the old Fantastic Four movies. I get it, but you are going to get the most from this movie if you do go back and watch all this. So I, of course, highly recommend you probably start now, because there are a lot of movies and you can spread them out over a year basically to watch everything. But this, yeah, it makes sense. I like that it's similar. I wish it were the same one, but I get that the Days of Future Past did alter what happened in the past, obviously. And if you go by the rules of the MCU that they have established so far, that should mean that an alternate timeline was created. And perhaps this is the universe where that alternate timeline has existed because of the Days of Future Past. So it is kind of like, it's kind of the same, but it's kind of different. This does work in the way that it's like, well, hopefully everything that happened up to Days of Future Past really did take place, but then after that, it's just kind of a new timeline created where Cyclops is alive, Jean's alive, things like that, which obviously, yeah, Cyclops is in the trailer, so I get this, and it does really seem like that is what they're doing. But he continues, what is new is that this universe exists as a utopia for humans and mutants, but you have to wonder, what exactly happened before that allowed this utopia to exist? What sacrifices had to be made for the greater good? And that question is the general motive of Doomsday. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, that sacrifice and loss is going to be one of the main themes, and Alex has more to say about that. But first, this next part that he said, or the part that we just went over, what sacrifices had to be made for the greater good in the X-Men universe for the utopia to happen, perhaps that's what we saw in the Doomsday X-Men teaser. Perhaps that's not Doom attacking. Perhaps that is an X-Men fighting to get their utopia. Perhaps that's like a final battle in that X-Men universe to finally just get peace. I like that Magneto is the one that gets his utopia, and I'm assuming him and Professor X both kind of run the utopia, but it's Magneto who's always, wanted his utopia. And it makes sense because they seem like they are dear friends in the trailer. And I do love the dynamic between Professor X and Magneto. I do really love when they are on good terms and are friends. So I think this is good, but it is now it's very interesting because we have to wonder, what did we see in that trailer? Some insiders have said these scenes that we've seen in the trailer, they aren't necessarily fake. Like, they are going to be in the movie, because some people were arguing, like, I don't think these scenes that we're seeing are actually going to be in the movie. Alex Perez himself said they are in the movie, but the context is not what you think it is. So perhaps we are taking a little glimpse into the past of the X-Men universe with that teaser for Cyclops and Magneto and Professor X. Either way, I love the trailer, and if that's what we're getting for the X-Men, we're good. But when it comes to what sacrifices have to be made, Alex Perez then finally said this, not just for Magneto, but for Sam, his Avengers, the Thunderbolts, the Wakandans, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Steve Rogers, Thor, Loki, the TVA, the variants we see in this movie, and most of all, Doom. What would you be willing to sacrifice to gain what you want? To succeed, to save the ones you love, your morals, your beliefs, your powers, your mortality, your life. As we talked about yesterday, sacrifice and loss. There's going to be some deaths in this movie. I'll ask you again, who do you think is going to die? And I think, if you've been following the channel, my absolute number one rule, Tobey Maguire cannot die in this movie. Who is your number one who cannot die? And who do you think is going to die? Please let me know both in the comments down below. So big things coming for the X-Men. Really excited about this. Now, the other report that we've heard recently from several different insiders is that the Fantastic Four ship, when it comes to the MCU and the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, is that Steve Rogers and Dr. Doom are on that ship heading to the 616 universe with the Fantastic Four. Plenty of insiders like My Time to Shine Hello have come out and said this is true. Daniel RPK just came out and said this is true. Some of them have said Thor is on it. Daniel RPK did not mention Thor. And now John Campea confirms that Cap and Doom are indeed on that ship. They did not mention Thor. He did not mention Thor. He states in his most recent live stream, yes, Victor Von Doom and Steve Rogers are on the Fantastic Four ship along with them. He has chosen to openly discuss this because if you've been watching John Campea, he said that they basically have heard what happens in the movie, but they're not going to spoil it. But since this report has been out, he is talking about this. So they do say that don't assume that every report about this is true. Like why they're on this ship is specifically what he was talking about. Why Doom and why Steve Rogers are on that ship. Some explanations of why they are on the ship out there are wrong. And they did say that as far as they have seen, they haven't seen anybody state the correct reason as to why they're on the ship. Now, that doesn't mean that some reports about why Steve is in that universe aren't true. For example, this is what My Time to Shine Hello said about how Steve gets in the gets in the 828 universe. After Avengers Endgame and before the end of Loki season 2, Loki visits Steve, who is living with Peggy and has a son. Loki informs Steve that the Time Variance Authority is going to erase this timeline because he is not supposed to be there or have a child. Loki offers Steve a way out, who transports Steve and his family to a universe where they never existed, allowing them to live peacefully. That universe turns out to be the Fantastic Four's universe. So, doesn't mean that part's not true, but why would Steve and Doom be on the Fantastic Four ship? Well, I personally think that it's because Doom shows up to the Fantastic Four because Doom has been out in the multiverse. I think Dr. Doom is from the 828 universe. I think that is very necessary because I think his backstory with Reed, it has to be there. That's just such a huge part of Reed and Doom's story in general is their backstory with each other, being roommates in college, etc. So I think Doom is actually from that universe, but he discovered multiversal travel, so he went out there in the multiverse. He could have ruled over an entire other universe and been at peace, and then an incursion could have destroyed that universe like other reports that we've heard. So he goes back to try to get the help of the Fantastic Four. Somehow, he is made aware that Steve Rogers is there. And this could be because he could be sitting in the Library of Worlds, being able to look into different universes, and perhaps he could see him there. Perhaps he somehow gets his hands on TVA or Kang technology and somehow locates him there, because we have heard that he has a personal vendetta against Steve Rogers because it seems like if My Time to Shine Hello's report is accurate, Steve did cause an incursion. The TVA was going to erase his timeline, but perhaps they were too late. We don't know that they actually did it. And perhaps his universe did cause an incursion with another one, and perhaps that is why Dr. Doom actually wants to get revenge against Steve Rogers. But Dr. Doom is cunning, he's sly, he doesn't just always, sometimes he does, but he doesn't just always go out and start attacking. He knows that there are powerful people out there, and he has to get rid of them first, right? And I do believe, I've said this before, but I do believe maybe in the beginning, he has just intentions. Maybe he does want to save the multiverse at first, but I ultimately think he realizes it can't be saved because all of these heroes are messing with timelines and time traveling and multiversal traveling, and they're just screwing everything up. So, hey, he decides he has to do it his way. But we have another confirmation from John Campea that Doom and Chris Evans as Steve Rogers / Captain America is on that Fantastic Four ship. Now, moving on to Kevin Feige, again, with Iger and Kathleen Kennedy leaving, people have been wondering what is going on with Kevin Feige. Could he possibly be leaving? I think from what I've seen, most people don't want him to leave. Yes, after Endgame, things got rough at some points in time, but we already know Disney was making him do a lot. They were pressuring them and making them do Disney Plus shows, and Kevin Feige was spread super thin. It was brand new for Marvel Studios. Not trying to kind of bail him out there because some things weren't really good, and you got to wonder how some things actually got approved to be released, but he was spread pretty thin. And we've heard recently that he has just been focusing on Avengers Doomsday with a little bit of Spider-Man because he was there to cast Sadie Sink's character, which again, I think is Jean Grey, because why would he specifically be there? Plus we heard she signed a 3-movie deal. So I think Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Secret Wars, which is confirmed by Deadline, and then a X-Men movie. And speaking of X-Men, that is reportedly what Kevin Feige is working on with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, of course. According to Deadline, they state this: Feige's future at the company is always a topic the town loves to gossip about, especially since Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy are leaving. That said, insiders don't expect a change anytime soon, as Feige is focused on delivering the next Avengers movie in December, as well as relaunching the X-Men franchise. So Kevin Feige has been solely focused on Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, and the X-Men. Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to be huge. They're already huge. Of course, he has to put a lot of time and focus into that. But the Russo brothers and Stephen McFeely and Michael Waldron, they know what they're doing. They have to consult with Kevin Feige. Obviously, he has to approve of everything. But we already know a new X-Men movie is coming, and they can't just not prepare for what's coming after Secret Wars. As Kevin Feige has always said, whatever they've announced, they have at least 5 to 10 years more planned. So Kevin Feige has the next entire phase already planned out. So they're working on the X-Men right now, which means they're probably casting. And again, if the reports about Sadie Sink are true, which I do believe they are, they've already cast one of the X-Men, Jean Grey, which means behind the scenes right now, they've either already cast or are casting Scott, Cyclops, maybe a new Wolverine, Beast, Iceman. I think they're casting a lot right now. New Professor X and new Magneto, wouldn't be surprised. Angel, I think we're doing a first class, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But it is good to know that Kevin Feige is focusing on the big things right now because there's a lot going on at Marvel. There's a lot of shows coming out, but Brad Winderbaum is in charge of Marvel TV. Kevin Feige, I obviously think, is still consulted, but his main focus has been on Doomsday, Secret Wars, and the X-Men, which means the future of the MCU should be good because Kevin Feige has not been spread too thin, but he's been focusing on what's important. So a lot of really exciting things happening right now. I'm glad Kevin Feige is staying, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. I have seen some people say, maybe Feige should retire. He's been doing it for a while, but I think we're about to witness a new era of Marvel with Spider-Man Brand New Day and Doomsday, and then going into the mutant saga of the MCU. So let me know what you think about this and all of the new reports in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel and Avengers Doomsday news. And you can also find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.